Right here I have a Craftsman chainsaw. This is a 36cc model. It does not have an actual model on it, just 36cc. And the problem that it came in with is right here. As you can see, the primer bulb is very stiff, and there's actually a crack right in the middle of it, and that will cause it not to run properly. But it will idle just fine. So if your chainsaw will idle, but it will not rev up, it'll just bog down and die, this could very well be one of the problems. The first thing you're going to do is remove this top cover to get to the engine components. You can do that with a T25, either screwdriver or socket. You can also use a flathead screwdriver. Now once you have the top cover removed, you can see the engine components. Next thing you're going to want to do is remove the air filter. And now you have access to the carburetor. Okay, so now after you get the air filter off, next thing I do is you're going to take the recoil assembly off. And that's the same thing, a T25 screwdriver. There are 4 screws to remove. Now you're going to go ahead and gently pull it off. Make sure not to lose your screws. And you're going to set that aside. So now you have better access to the primer bulb. Okay, so now the next step is you're going to remove this one screw and this. Make sure not to lose that screw. Now you're going to take a pair of needle nose pliers, and right here on the on-off switch there is a little electrical connector. You're going to pull that straight out along with this yellow connector. Be sure not to break them. Now with those removed, you're going to have 2 5/16 nuts that also hold this on. They hold the carburetor on, actually. Now with your 5/16 socket, you can remove these 2 nuts that hold the carburetor on. Now you can pull this whole assembly off. Just like so. Now that that's off, make sure not to lose that screw right there. Now you have your carburetor exposed. Now that you can see the throttle linkage right here, you're going to have to remove that. Now you're going to press the throttle in and just pull that out very gently. So you're going to press the throttle in and you're going to pull the wire or the linkage right out of there. Your carburetor should be free to come off now, except for your fuel lines. There we go. That'll be just enough to pull it off. Once you have the carburetor removed, now you have access to the fuel lines, your primer lines, which this is one of them. It actually fell off. And your primer return line. Now right here is where the new primer is going to go. Here's a look at the new primer. There's actually two tabs back here. There's two tabs which you can kind of see, and they just clip into the plastic on the chainsaw. Here I have a new piece of fuel line that I just cut to replace this older piece that is very hard, and it actually falls off the primer. So the short one, the short hose, is going to go onto the short part of the primer, just like so, and then the longer one down here is going to go onto the longer one. And just like that, your primer is installed. Now it's time to reinstall the carburetor. So here's the carburetor. I'm going to actually put the fuel lines on. You should remember which way you took them off. Now before we go any further, I want to see if this will pump fuel. Awesome, which it does. You can see that that's full of fuel now, so that's going to work out awesome. The first thing I'm going to put back on is this part right here. To reinstall this, it's pretty much the same exact way you took it off. Just gotta line up the studs with the holes. Get the choke in the right position. Now to reinstall this, you're just going to set the recoil assembly back on the chainsaw the way it came off, and if it doesn't go down all the way, you're going to take the recoil rope and just pull it gently, pull it like that, and then it'll drop down. Now there's just 4 screws you got to retighten. When you have the carburetor and the recoil assembly reinstalled, you should always check and make sure that your throttle is going to work fine. You want to make sure that your on-off switch doesn't bind. It should click. And you also want to make sure that your choke will pull out and lock, and then when you press the throttle, it'll click back in. If all those do that, then you know you put it back together right. With everything now installed and everything working the way it should, you're now able to start it up. You can see there's fuel in the primer bulb now. So the only thing left to do now is try and start it up, see what happens. Alright guys, well thanks for watching this video. Please comment, rate, and subscribe.